Your thesis. Who cares? Camille sneered, then grabbed my laptop off the dinner table and hurled it to the ground. Crack! The screen shattered, my breath caught, and my mom. She laughed. Aurora, you're too sensitive, she said, waving her fork like she hadn't just watched my future explode across the tile. My dad didn't even pause chewing. He just muttered, maybe she wasn't meant to graduate. I stood up and walked out. I didn't scream, didn't cry. Just picked up what was left of my laptop, metal twisted screen, broken keys loose like teeth, and walked upstairs, like I was carrying a body, like I was burying myself. It wasn't always like this. Or maybe it was, and I had just refused to see it. When I was 12, I used to sit on the front steps every afternoon waiting for my mom to come home. I'd hold up my report card with trembling fingers, hoping this time she'd look, that this time she'd say, I'm proud of you. But she never did. She'd glance, maybe then ask what was for dinner. Camille didn't need report cards. She had charm, sparkle, trouble that came with glitter and giggles. When she got suspended for stealing someone's iPhone in 9th grade, Mom said she's just misunderstood. When I stayed up till 2 a.m. finishing a scholarship essay, they told me to lighten up. Camille was the sun in our family. I was the shadow that followed her around. Still, I kept working. I thought maybe if I just kept pushing, they'd see me. I got into college. No one came to move-in day. I landed a research assistantship. No one asked about it. When I was accepted into grad school with a partial fellowship for cultural anthropology, first in our family to ever pursue a master's, my dad blinked and said, so, like, studying monkeys. I laughed politely. It hurt. Camille. She dropped out of college after one semester, came home, kicked her shoes off, and never worked a single shift. But somehow she always had new clothes, a car, vacations. She lounged around like she was royalty, and to my parents, she was. Meanwhile, I was pouring lattes at 6 a.m. shelving books until 11 p.m. and using my lunch breaks to annotate ethnographic articles on my phone because I couldn't afford to print them. And I didn't complain. Not when I skipped Christmas to finish a midterm project. Not when I pawned my only coat to buy a textbook. Not even when my mom told our neighbor at Thanksgiving Camille's the star. Aurora just reads too much. I just kept going. I told myself it was fine, that one day the degree would mean something, that maybe when I walked across that stage in my cap and gown, they'd finally clap. But as I sat down for dinner that night, running on 3 hours of sleep and stale coffee laptop, open next to my plate eyes squinting at citations, I should have known better. Camille curled her lip. You bringing that thing to dinner now? I just need to finish revising my abstract, I said softly. It's due next week. She scoffed. God, you're so boring. Like anyone cares about your little cultural thesis. I didn't answer. And maybe that silence, my silence, was my mistake. She stood up, slow and deliberate, like she was walking into a stage light. Then she reached across the table, grabbed my laptop, and before I could say a word, crack. The sound echoed. Metal on tile. The screen spiderwebbed. The hard drive let out a mechanical wheeze and went dark. For a second, no one moved. Even the air held its breath. Then my mom chuckled. Sweetie, don't be so dramatic. It's just a laptop. My father stabbed another piece of steak, shrugged. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe she wasn't meant to graduate. Camille smirked, proud of the mess she made. Guess she'll finally stop acting like she's better than us. I looked at the pieces on the floor, the machine I'd bought secondhand after saving for months, the one that held every citation, every field note, every hour of research I'd built with my own 2 hands. And they laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was mine. And in that moment, something in me cracked too, just like the screen. Only mine didn't shatter it. Sharpened. I stood up, carefully like I wasn't in my own home, collected the fragments of my work, and walked upstairs, step by step like each tread was a promise. In my room, I sat on the mattress I called a bed. No frame, no decor, just books stacked on milk crates and a desk made from 2 sawhorses. I stared at the screen of my phone thumb hovering over the deadline notification thesis due in 7 days. 7 days. No backup, no sympathy, no help, just me. And suddenly, for the first time, I didn't want their approval. I wanted out of their story, out of their silence, out of the lie that if I just endured long enough, they'd love me better. So I got up, opened my desk drawer, found my old flash drive, plugged it in, and I began again. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my mattress, no bed frame, no comforter, just a blanket and gravity, listening to the echo of their laughter downstairs like it was a sitcom, and my life was the joke. No one knocked. No one asked if I was okay, not even a fake passive-aggressive text. It was like I had ceased to exist the moment the screen cracked, but I was still here, and I wasn't going to disappear. I pulled open my drawer and found the old flash drive I hadn't used in over a year. It rattled slightly, like even it wasn't sure it could handle what was coming. I plugged it into the campus computer the next morning, stone-faced, exhausted but present. There was no backup of my full thesis. No cloud storage, I couldn't afford that. But there were fragments, lecture notes, draft outlines, a few early citations, enough for a skeleton. 7 days. That number sat in my stomach like a ticking bomb. This wasn't just about rebuilding a document. This was about salvaging my dignity from the ashes they left me in. I wasn't just going to survive this, I was going to finish stronger than before. At 6:43 a.m., I sent an email to my thesis advisor. Short, honest. I told him my laptop had been destroyed, that I'd lost everything, that I was trying to reconstruct it all from memory and scraps. I didn't name names, just facts. He replied by 8:12 a.m. Aurora. I've seen your consistency all semester. You've earned a little grace. You've got an extension until next Friday. Keep me posted. You've got this. I exhaled, shoulders trembling, not from relief, but from the sudden release of being believed. From that moment forward, I locked in. I claimed a corner computer in the library's back row. No social media, no distractions. Just me, Google Docs caffeine, and unprocessed rage. I typed like my life depended on it because it did. I re-downloaded academic sources through JSTOR and the university archives. I reconstructed my field notes from old text messages and voice memos stored in my dusty backup phone. I emailed the woman I interviewed for my second case study and asked if she'd be willing to repeat a few things. She responded within the hour. Of course. I remember you. You listened better than anyone. Each recovery felt like finding a piece of myself beneath rubble. When the library closed, I moved to the 24-hour student center. I wrote through the night, nodding off on the keyboard, waking up with drool on my sleeve, then starting again. I drank coffee until my hands shook and scribbled diagrams until the ink bled through the pages. By day 3, my shoulders burned. By day 4, I hallucinated a citation that didn't exist and lost an hour chasing it. Still, I didn't stop. What kept me going wasn't some inspirational quote or imagined applause at graduation. It was Camille's voice echoing like a war drum. Your thesis. Who cares? That single sentence became my fuel. When my body wanted to quit, I heard her sneer. When I felt worthless, I remembered my mother's laugh. When my eyes blurred from sleep deprivation, I saw my father chewing indifferent as if my devastation was mildly amusing. They didn't know what they started. And as I rewrote the discussion section for the second time, half-formed, incomplete, I began to realize something. This wasn't just about finishing a thesis anymore. It was about reclaiming something deeper. My right to exist outside their narrative. My right to succeed to matter, even if they never clapped or cared. To prove, if only to myself, that their dismissal didn't define my worth. Somewhere between rebuilding my literature review and reworking my conclusion, my grief calcified into something sharp. Not anger, not vengeance, clarity. I would finish this thesis. And then I would make sure Camille and the silence that protected her finally faced consequences. Because yes, I had lost everything, but I was still Aurora James. And they had no idea who they were laughing at. By the 5th day, my thesis had shape again. It wasn't perfect. Some citations were missing. One case study still felt thin, but it was alive, breathing. And more importantly, mine. Every paragraph was stitched from memory, from scars, from sheer force of will. And while I kept refining it by day by night, I started digging, because Camille thought smashing my laptop was the end of the story. She had no idea how carefully the boring academic in the house observed everything. I remembered the little things. The time she bragged about using my student ID to get discounts. The Amazon packages that arrived under my name. The time she accidentally used Mom's credit card for a $300 purchase, then blamed the neighbor kid. It used to make me roll my eyes. But now it made a pattern. So I opened a new folder on my flash drive. Title: Camille Evidence Receipts, Screenshots, Confirmation Emails, Photos of packages signed under my name, messages where she joked about scamming our parents, even a voice memo buried in an old group chat where she laughed about breaking a window and blaming someone else. I labeled each file carefully. I timestamped them all. What started as curiosity became a file system of fraud. Then, I found something I hadn't expected. Buried in a browser history backup I'd synced weeks ago, a login to an online academic essay marketplace. I almost skipped it, but then I saw the username, Camille2023. I clicked, and there it was. A thread in a writing forum about reselling old student essays under fake names. Camille had posted 3 samples. One of them I recognized. Verbatim. It was the exact paragraph from a short essay I had submitted as a sophomore. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't sabotage anymore. This was theft. This was identity fraud. And it wasn't limited to academia. One post linked to a small youth arts magazine, the same one that had emailed me weeks ago. "Hi, Aurora, we loved your voice in this piece. Let's chat about edits." I had deleted it, assuming it was spam. It wasn't. Camille had submitted my work under my name and gotten published. That was the moment something shifted in me. Not rage, not panic, precision. This wasn't just about repairing damage anymore. It was about drawing a line. She had impersonated me, used my name, my words, my voice. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to respond, professionally, legally, quietly. I stayed up that night organizing everything. I created labeled folders: academic misconduct, digital impersonation, financial abuse, unauthorized purchases, essay plagiarism. Each item had a date, a source, a screenshot. I even exported chat logs, cross-referenced document metadata, and saved HTML archives. By morning, I had a complete packet. I didn't tell anyone. At 8:47 a.m., I pressed submit on my final thesis, and at 9:02 a.m., I walked calmly, no fanfare, into the student legal clinic, handed over the folder, and said I'd like to file 4 formal complaints: academic fraud, identity misuse, credit-related misconduct, and intellectual property theft. The legal assistant blinked. "Wow," she said. "You've been busy." I smiled, not cruelly, not smugly, just clean. "She made it personal," I said. "I'm responding professionally." By noon, the clinic submitted initial reports to the youth magazine that published the stolen article, the University Academic Integrity Board, the credit union that managed the student credit line, the online essay marketplace Camille used. Each submission came with documented evidence. Each case referenced my name, my identity. Each action was traceable. And I didn't feel guilty. I felt intact, whole for the first time in years, because silence had never protected me. But the truth might. At 2:15 p.m., I got an email from my advisor. "Got your thesis. Outstanding recovery, Aurora. You should be very proud." At 2:42 p.m., I got a message from the magazine's editor. "We're stunned by this. Thank you for your transparency. We've escalated this to our legal team." At 4:04 p.m., my phone lit up. Dad, calling. I didn't answer. This day didn't belong to him. It belonged to me. The daughter they ignored, the student they dismissed, the woman who rebuilt her future from ashes then turned and closed the door. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. 6:12 a.m. Dad, we need to talk. Call me. 6:15 a.m. Mom, Aurora, please come home. We didn't know it was this serious. 6:29 a.m. Camille, you are ruining my life, you crazy bee. I blocked her. Not because it hurt, but because I didn't have the energy to absorb someone else's chaos anymore. By noon, a new email came in. Subject, family first. From my mother, Aurora. This is tearing us apart. Camille made some mistakes, sure, but you've taken this too far. The school is threatening to suspend her. She's devastated. Please retract the complaints. Let us handle it privately. No more outsiders. Please. I stared at the screen. Nowhere in that email did she ask how I was doing. Nowhere did she mention the thesis I had fought tooth and nail to rebuild. Nowhere did she say the words, I'm sorry. It wasn't concern, it was control. They didn't want to fix anything. They wanted it to disappear. At 3:05 p.m., Dad called again. I answered. His voice was clipped, composed, like someone trying to sound calm while managing deep irritation. You've made your point, he began. We'll pay for a new laptop. Let's just be done with this. I let silence hang for a moment. You think this is about a laptop, I said? He hesitated. Well, what else is there to talk about? My voice was quiet but unwavering. The fact that she used my name to commit fraud. The fact that you watched her destroy my work and laughed. The fact that you've all treated my pain like it was a joke. Aurora, we're your family, I cut in. No, you're her family. You just forgot I was yours. He exhaled sharp and forced. The university is threatening expulsion. Her future could be over. I didn't flinch. So was mine. Remember, he didn't respond. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I didn't try to explain. I had done that for years. Explained myself into exhaustion. Justified my existence into invisibility. This time, I simply told the truth. I'm done protecting people who watched me break and laughed. That night, I received another message. It was Camille, but not from her regular number. A burner email account clearly created in panic. Please, I messed up. I'll say sorry. Just don't let them expel me. I didn't think it would go this far. Even now, when everything was collapsing around her, there was no accountability, just fear, just self-preservation. She wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she got caught. I didn't reply. Instead, I logged out of my email, closed my laptop, and for the first time in years, I felt untangled. No more emotional debt, no more shrinking myself to protect someone who had no problem erasing me. They wanted a quiet fix, but I had already made a promise to myself that I would never go back. 1 week after I submitted my thesis, the world shifted again. It was a rainy Thursday, the kind where everything feels gray and hollow. I was curled up in the student center with a reheated burrito and a headache that had lasted 3 days. Then I saw the email. Subject, congratulations. Aurora James finalist from National Graduate Research Council. I blinked, then read it again and again. They had selected my thesis, the one I rebuilt from ashes, as a finalist for the Rising Scholar Award, the prize and all-expenses-paid trip to Chicago to present at the annual National Research Conference. Travel, lodging, meals, all covered, exposure guaranteed. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I couldn't move. Me. The too sensitive one. The boring academic. They picked me. I didn't tell anyone. Not my advisor. Not my classmates. Certainly not my parents. Instead, I packed the one blazer I owned, the same one I wore to my graduate school interview. It still had a small ink stain on the cuff. I polished my old black flats and stuffed everything into a thrifted carry-on. When I boarded the plane to Chicago, I didn't feel glamorous. I felt still, solid, like I belonged to myself for the first time. The city was cold, brisk air, steel gray buildings, everyone moving like they had places to be. I liked it instantly. At the conference, the lecture hall filled quickly. Scholars, faculty editors, students. As I stood behind the podium, palms damp, my voice trembled for exactly 2 sentences. Then I found rhythm. Then I found fire. I presented my thesis, Cultural Resilience and Inherited Silence, a field study, as if I were anchoring it into stone. Every theory, every quote, every data point felt earned. When the applause came, it didn't feel polite. It felt like permission. Permission to stop surviving. Permission to finally live out loud. That night, as I sat in the hotel lobby nursing a lukewarm tea, a woman approached me. Crisp blazer, sharp eyes, kind smile. "Excuse me, are you Aurora James?" I nodded. "I'm Olivia Grant. I'm editor-in-chief of an investigative outlet focused on higher education and systemic abuse. I attended your presentation. Your thesis was remarkable." She paused. "But I also heard there's been chatter about academic fraud at your university, and about a student who stood up, documented it, and filed multiple complaints. Your name came up not as a suspect, but as a witness, as someone who wouldn't stay silent." My stomach tensed. I hadn't expected anyone to talk. Olivia held out her card. "I'd love to hear your side of the story." At first I hesitated. I'd lived in silence so long I didn't know how to tell my truth without apologizing. But then I remembered something: silence had protected them. Truth would protect others. So I said yes. Not out of revenge, not out of ego, out of clarity. We spoke for 3 hours. I told her everything. How Camille had smashed my laptop, how my parents laughed, how I rebuilt everything from memory, how I gathered evidence, filed reports, and submitted complaints not to destroy but to survive. She listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't pity me. She just took notes like my voice mattered, and for the first time, I believed it did. 5 days later, the article went live. Headline: Scapegoat to Scholar One Woman's Fight Against Toxic Silence in Academia and Family. I didn't expect what came next. It went viral. Professors I'd never met shared it. Students DM'd me to say thank you. Former neighbors sent emails. Even a high school teacher I barely remembered messaged me. "We always knew you were the strong one." I didn't reply to everyone. I couldn't. But I read every word. And in each message, I saw pieces of myself finally being recognized, not for being dramatic or difficult or fragile, but for surviving, for enduring, for fighting. My story wasn't being erased anymore. It was being amplified. And that visibility, it didn't feel like a spotlight. It felt like a sunrise. 3 months later, I stood at the iron gates of Rosewood Estate. Morning sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the gravel drive. I held a clipboard in one hand, a key card in the other, and watched as the wind rustled through the same trees, where years ago Camille once posed for family photos like royalty. Rosewood used to be the Carter family summer tradition. Every 4th of July, we'd gather here, picnics, cheap wine, overcooked burgers. Camille in pastel dresses. My father manning the grill like he was auditioning for a cooking show. My mother making snide remarks about other people's children while pretending we were a picture-perfect unit. Back then, I stayed quiet, sat with a book, helped clean up, smiled when told, invisible. Now Rosewood had been converted into a leadership retreat acquired by the progressive think tank I now worked for. I wasn't just an employee. I was their newest research director. My name was on the booking approval list. My word was final. Funny how things change. That morning, my assistant forwarded me an email. Subject: Carter Family Reunion Annual Booking Request. "Hello, we'd like to reserve Rosewood Estate for our traditional July 4th gathering. We hope the new management can accommodate." They didn't know, but I did. I replied calmly, "Thank you for your inquiry. As per our new policy, we are unable to accommodate event bookings involving individuals with unresolved legal actions or a documented history of abuse or misconduct. We wish you the best in finding an alternative venue. No drama, no rage, just a gate closed firmly, finally." But it wasn't quite over. A week later, on the morning of the summer retreat, a familiar car pulled up to the outer drive. It was them. My mother stepped out first, dressed too formally for a casual encounter, her face carefully arranged into an expression she probably practiced in the mirror. My father followed, more stiff than smug. They looked at the grounds like they were trespassing on a past life. They didn't recognize me at first, not in the crisp white linen suit, not with the staff badge around my neck, not with confidence in my spine. But when they did, when my mother's eyes widened and my father blinked like he'd seen a ghost, there was a silence I hadn't felt in years. She took a step forward. "Aurora." "We didn't know you." I raised a hand, calm, steady. "You did," I said. "You just didn't think I'd ever own something you couldn't control." My dad cleared his throat. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I tilted my head. "Then why did you laugh when she did?" They had no answer, just hollow eyes. Regret. Maybe. Or maybe just discomfort at not holding the key. My mother tried again. "Could we still use the grounds just for this year? For the family?" I smiled. Not cruelly, just clean. "There's a public park 2 towns over. You'll find it less intimidating." Before they could speak again, I turned and walked toward the house. The gate clicked shut behind me. No yelling, no guilt trip, no scene. Only the wind followed. And this time, it didn't sting. It healed. Because for once, their silence wasn't erasure. It was acknowledgement. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore. I wasn't the broken girl clutching a shattered laptop on the stairs. I wasn't the academic mouse, the afterthought daughter, the punchline. I was the one holding the key, the one who said yes and no with the same power. That afternoon, as I walked through the halls of Rosewood checking on our guest speakers and greeting scholars from around the country, my phone buzzed. A message from Olivia Grant, the investigative journalist. "Thought you'd like to know Camille's article is now being used in academic training on fraud awareness. Your story is making change." I smiled. Not because Camille was exposed, but because I was no longer hiding. Later, as the sun dipped below the trees and the lanterns lit up the rose path outside the manor, I paused. Took it all in. The very place they used to gather without seeing me was now a space where I built something real. A space where truth lived, where silence had been replaced by voice. And I thought maybe justice doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it arrives on quiet mornings, in emails, in closed gates, in moments when you no longer need them to understand. You just need them to see. They never broke you. They only revealed who you were all along. Have you ever rebuilt your future after someone tried to destroy it? Tell your story in the comments. And if Aurora's journey moved, you share this video, like, and subscribe. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is rising, silently, completely, without looking back.